A journalist called Adam Long wrote a piece back in 2016 called "Why Steve Jobs Killed 70% of Apple's Products, a Lesson on Range Architecture." But he did not only write about why Apple killed 70%, but also used GM as an example of bad range architecture. How GM made the ladder for success in 1921 and had a good range architecture, but didn't stick to their own strategy, and their product range in 2008 was a disaster just before they filed for bankruptcy. So even though the article from Adam Long is 8 years old, it is still as relevant today as it was back then. And the lesson we learned from Apple, we can see Tesla uses today. But it seems like GM has learned nothing from their bankruptcy, and the ladder of success that Alfred P. Sloan created for GM in 1921, they seem to have long forgotten. So because we're constantly hearing about this in the mainstream media, how Tesla need more models, I thought I would like to show why that is not the case. It seems like most people in the mainstream media have forgotten about Apple in 1997 and when Steve Jobs came back and saved the company from bankruptcy. What lesson we learned and what Steve did. And what GM themselves made back in 1921, the ladder to success, that made GM the biggest automakers in the US, and they have been ever since. But when they didn't stick to the ladder, it all went wrong for GM and they died in 2008. But was bailed out by the US government, and that is the only reason they are alive and kicking today. So let's check out these fascinating stories about Apple, GM and Tesla and what we can learn from them, and let's dive right in. Range architecture is a structure of your products, sub-brands and price points. A well-designed range architecture will help your customer pick the right product at the right price, helping them navigate sometimes countless choices. One of the most famous range architecture was developed by Alfred P. Sloan of General Motors in 1921. His so-called ladder of success gave each car brand a price point that wouldn't conflict with any others. It was said that you could tell who lived in a house by the car that was parked out in front. A Cadillac suggested a CEO and a Buick was the factory foreman. Sloan's range architecture made the question, which car is right for me? A simple one, not a stressful one, so General Motors thrived. And as we can see, their range architecture was simple and straightforward. Of course, GM's range architecture was too beautiful to last. General Motors' incentive schemes rewarded each brand individually and ultimately tempted brand managers to try to capture just a few more customers by adding just a few more options. More options meant more prices and more models and more choice. This example of entropy led to the very complex brand architecture that General Motors had in 2008, right as they were facing bankruptcy. And look at the mess it became. As you can see, in the $20,000 to $30,000 range, there suddenly was a whole sea of choices, cannibalizing each other. Barry Schwartz's work on the tyranny of choice makes it clear that fewer choices led to more purchases, faster and with less post-purchase regrets. The more choices you have, you will always think, maybe I should have chosen something else instead. While common sense would say that more choices give more utility, behavioral economics shows that complex choices usually result in no choice at all, and more importantly, no sales. This is very important to understand because many people think it is the other way around, and someone like General Motors think that as well, even though they invented the ladder of success themselves. But nowadays they don't follow that model at all, and probably why they ended up in bankruptcy in 2008 and why their sales are down about 40% since its high in 2016. But one company that experienced kind of the same thing in the 1990s was Apple. But Steve Jobs came back and saved Apple just 90 days before they had to file for bankruptcy. When Jobs returned in 1997, the company was, according to Jobs, 90 days from being insolvent. Sales were dismal. The story goes that Steve was asked by a friend which computer she should buy. Steve was stumped. Despite hundreds of products, there was no clear answer. In fact, Apple's range architecture was as messy in 1997 as General Motors was in 2008. The company had been making multiple versions of products to satisfy requests from retailers, including 12 versions of the Macintosh computer. After weeks of meeting with product people, he had enough. According to Walter Isaacson's book of Steve Jobs, Steve shouted "Stop" in the middle of the product meeting and said, "This is crazy." He took a marker and drew a chart that was to form the basis of Apple's product range for years to come. The simple insight was to help people choose a computer using only 2 questions. Are you an everyday consumer or pro? And do you want portable or desktop? In this one bold move, 70% of Apple's range was cut. 1 year later, the nearly bankrupt company turned a very healthy $309 million profit. Today, the company is worth more than $2 trillion. So why did Apple kill the Newton? The real story actually points to simplicity. The simpler the product range, the easier it is to make a choice, the more sales you can get, and the more economy of scale you can get on each model.
And we looked at this and we said, now, this looks pretty simple, but we couldn't find a way to come up with anything else that captured what they wanted as succinctly and as clearly as this. We said, finally, this is it. We've got to make 4 great products, and we can meet the needs of what our customers are telling us they want.
So what does these 2 case studies tell us about range architecture? At Step Change, Adam Long reviewed more than 30 range architectures, and there's one principle that surfaced time and time again. Make it easy for customers. A range should only be extended where it clearly makes the choice easier for a customer segment. In the right situation, adding a choice to a range can increase average weight of purchase, make the sales cycle shorter, and even reduce post-purchase regrets. But before you add anything new, cut as much as you can. Your customers won't notice just how much simpler things are, so they won't thank you, but your finance team will, just as we saw with Apple. And unfortunately, we saw the exact opposite with GM. They had a simple range architecture back in the days, but it seems they have forgotten all about it, even their own ladder of success, and today they truly believe more choices are better, even though all studies shows us this is not the case. And on top of all of this, we also have the problem of making more choices that also makes production more complicated. And as we have seen from both GM and Ford, making EVs are not as simple as they thought. GM is right now hardly making EVs. They sold only about 16,000 EVs in Q1 of 2024. So even before they have even got just one good EV off the ground with high volume production numbers, they are revealing one new EV model after the other. This will not make the production any less complicated for them. They will not get the same economy of scale as Tesla does, that made 1.23 million Model Ys last year. So I really don't think Tesla need 20 EV models. They need one great EV in every category, like sedan and SUVs as they have right now. And now they also have the pickup truck and the semi-truck as well, and they will come with a compact EV and a van for sure. And probably a few more models as well. But they don't need 30 different models. This will be enough. Just like Apple, that keeps it very simple with all their products. They don't offer hundreds of different phones, only a handful. But Apple sits on something like 80% of the profits in the smartphone market, and is one of the strongest brands in the world. And Tesla is now one of the fastest growing brands in the world. And the secret to strategic branding is not what people see, it's how you make your customers feel.
everybody wants to do.
Oh my God! And people are over the moon for their Teslas. We are thousands of Tesla fans making free advertising for Tesla here on YouTube. This is how much we like the product and the company, and why Tesla doesn't have to spend billions of dollars every year on advertising as GM does. Because the truth is, it is often the best marketing and not the best product that wins. But with Tesla, it's the other way around, because they don't do marketing. Their product is that good, so here it is simply just the best product that wins. And Tesla is winning. They are earning more money and net income than both Ford and GM right now, and they are growing faster than any other complex manufacturer in history, even faster than Ford did with the Model T back in the days. And we all know how that ended. And Tesla is growing faster than that. And because Tesla is sticking to only a couple of models, they can use gigacastings. That will be too expensive if you don't make high volumes of the same car body. Tesla does this, and now most other OEMs are trying to copy Tesla's production method. So Tesla will continue to earn a lot more money on selling their EVs than the legacy automakers, because they only have a handful of models and the legacy automakers have 30 or 35 different models. As Sandy Munro also said, the way Tesla is doing it with gigacasting is the right way to do business.
This is the right way to go.
Yeah.
Tesla is all about simplicity. The best process is no process. The best part is no part. They are deleting part constantly. Even the gigacasting today is already about 4 kilos lighter than it was when they first made it only a few years ago. So Tesla does follow the law of range architecture. So no, you won't see 20 or 50 different vehicles from Tesla, because that will only make everything worse, not better. The less choice you have, the more happy you are with the choice you end up taking. And I think people will be surprised about how many Model 3s and Ys Tesla will be able to sell. I don't think many saw Tesla selling 1.2 million Model Ys in 2024. And then we of course have the real mass production vehicle coming soon, with Tesla's unboxed production method of the next generation vehicle probably starting next year, taking it to a whole new level once again. Because a good range architecture is one of the most important things. But unfortunately, it seems like legacy automakers have forgotten this by complicating pretty much every little aspect of their companies. And this was just one simple example of why Tesla will continue to lead. And thank you for watching. And until next time, take care out there and be nice.